We have reached another Friday. How has my week been? Last week, compared to this week, comparatively, this week has been much better than last week. Because I remember last week I was extremely stressed out. I had an extremely tough time in work, outside of work. It was just a tough week overall. But this week has been moderately tough, which I will consider a win by comparison. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the positives of the social work field. I know that uncharacteristically, I've hopped on this channel a lot over the last couple of months complaining about the difficulties that I have experienced, which have been many in the field. But I just wanted to make a clarification for everybody. My complaints are not really with the job duties, the job or the job duties itself. My complaint is more due to the business side of things, how everything is structured, and how I feel that it's impossible to accomplish everything that they want you to accomplish while still maintaining an appropriate level of your own mental health and being able to meet your own needs. That is always what I've had the problem with. Now, in terms of the job itself, if the caseload was reasonable and if all things were fair in that regard, it actually makes you feel like a superhero, like you're Superman or something, to be able to get up in the morning, throw that badge around your neck, and then go meet people where they are. It's actually pretty special because when I was at my worst, when it came to mental health, when it came to my finances, when it came to just, I was at a stage in my life where nothing was going right and I didn't really see a way out of it. I wish I had somebody like me to actually show up at my house 2 times a month, make sure that my needs are being met, speak to me like a counselor. These people basically get free peer counseling from me. Even though I am no longer a peer counselor, it's just something that is in me at this point. So when I go to greet the members, I'm not just like, hey, what are your needs? Write down their needs and then I'm done with them. No, I ask them how they're doing. I ask them how their families are doing. I ask them how they're managing their emotions. I ask them a bunch of things that I don't really need to ask them as a case manager, because our only job as a case manager is to refer them to the services that they do need. So, like I said, it makes me feel like somewhat of a superhero to wake up in the morning, get myself ready, throw my badge around my neck, and now I'm a person who's working towards improving the lives of several different people on my caseload. Like, I felt like I was Maury the other day, not Maury. Maury's a bad example. I felt like I was Ayanla the other day from Ayanla Fix My Life, where I had this one person who had all these complaints about a family member, a couple of family members, and I actually was able to get in touch with the family members and hear their side of the story, which, you know, there were some inconsistencies between what that person was saying, what the family was saying, but I've been working to bridge the gap between those people. And then there's others who just have an overwhelming amount of medical needs that they have to get taken care of. And I'm sitting here and helping them make sure that they see all these different providers, make sure they get these chronic illnesses under control. In some cases, I'm doing work that is going to help save their lives in the long run. Even though it's tedious for me, It's something that is very beneficial and important for them. So, all things considered, I know that it sounds like I've been saying I don't like the work, and I want to make it clear. I do like the work. The work is something that is just in me to do, honestly, because I'm a person who I like advocating for people. I like assisting people with solving problems. When I go and I see somebody who's broken, it's just something that I feel compelled to be like, how can I help you? How can I assist you? I remember this one day when I was at another job. I went into the grocery store at the end of the day and I said, man, I have no capacity left within me to assist anybody. So let me just go in here and get these groceries and leave. I have no intent of anything else. Went into the grocery store, got the groceries. I went to the self-checkout. I didn't even want to talk to a cashier. That's how bad it was. And I will always choose a cashier over the self-checkout, except for at Walmart, because there's like 2 cashiers open. But anywhere else, I will always choose the cashier over the self-checkout, because I just don't believe in electronics and all that stuff replacing our jobs and everything. But there's still that person that stands there, 1 or 2 people that stand there at the self-checkout. And I was scanning an item and the lady had to assist me with something. I forget what it was for. But I looked at her and she looked like she was really down. And in my head, I was like, just walk out, Mark. Just walk out. She says, how are you doing? How was your day? I was like, my day was okay. Thanks for asking. And I was thinking, just leave it at that. She asked me how my day was. She's at work. So here, I'm not at work. This is not somebody I know. So I'm just going to, finish checking out my items and then leave. But I was like, I can't. So I said, how are you doing at the end of it? She said, oh, I'm hanging by a thread. Once again, technically, I don't know this person. She's not a client of mine. She's not a friend of mine. Yes, it's somebody I've seen before in the grocery store, but it's not somebody that I know on a personal level at all. I couldn't walk away from that. I did limit myself on what I was gonna say. I asked her, oh, why would you say you're hanging by a thread? And she was like, well, there's just so many different things going on in my life at this moment, and sometimes I just feel like I'm just here and I don't really have any purpose for being here. And I knew that this would be an extremely long conversation that I did not have the capacity to take at this point. So I just told her, I'm sorry, but when you feel like you're hanging by a thread, hang on tight, just keep holding on, and there's gonna be hope if you make it to the next day. She was like, thank you so much, and I left. And I was like, Mark, you did good, because it took everything in me not to actually engage in a full conversation. Just gave her a little positive blurb and went about my day. But my point of even saying that is because a lot of people would be in that same situation and be like, I don't care if she's hanging by a thread. I'm just trying to get home. So sometimes when I talk to these members or clients, whatever you want to call them, they'll dump a bunch of stuff on me and they'll tell me, oh, I'm so sorry. I know that I'm putting a lot on your plate, or I know that this is a lot. It's rare that I have actually encountered somebody who's told me so much, especially in a work setting where I am on the clock and getting paid, where anyone has ever told me anything that feels like too much for me to hear. I have a very large capacity to listen to people. That's really why I have this job. That's really why I have not had trouble getting a job in this field over the last 12 years. because I can fully admit there's probably people on paper much better at this job than me on paper. And what I mean by on paper, I mean in terms of the way they document their interactions. I know there's people who do that much better than me. But I'm a great listener, and I have a lot of sympathy and empathy for the people that I'm speaking to. So 95% of the time, I get along very well with the clients that I'm serving. So that 5% really bothers me. If y'all remember when I got on here and I told y'all about this member that just trashed me, made up all these stories about me, I was very unhappy about that because I had never had that kind of experience before. Like, I'm not saying that every single client I've ever had over the course of 12 years has never complained about me. I mean, that's impossible. But what I'm saying is this was like really detailed, and it felt like it was targeted, and it was for the purpose of destroying my reputation. That's the reasons why I felt so upset about that. Hi, Prince. That's the reason why I felt so upset about that particular situation. And I had one other member that I spoke about the first week that I started the job, which I can't even really say on here what happened with that person, because that one is so specific that it would be obvious if someone were to watch this video and know where I work. So I'll just say it was just a bad thing. It was just a bad, overall bad situation with another member. So two of them that I've had difficult experiences with. But I've had plenty of others that really value the things that I do, and it feels good to leave my house. It doesn't matter what's going on with me. You know, something that people don't realize, hi Cass, something that a lot of people don't realize when it comes to social workers, case managers, licensed clinicians, therapists, people who are in that type of field. You would think that those are some superhuman people that are just like, I want to save the world. So that's the reason why they get into the field. And I used to think so too, before my first experience working with those people as colleagues. I had already received some years of therapy, but in about 2018, I got a job as a peer specialist in an office, and I had co-managed cases where the client would see their therapist, their psychiatrist, and myself. They would see all of us. So I would constantly have these collaborative meetings with the therapist. And I started to develop some friendships with some of those therapists. So within those friendships, they would start speaking to me about their life outside of the job. And some of them had stories that were even heavier than mine. And they told me the only real difference between myself and you is the fact that I pursued a master's degree and got my LCSW or LMSW, which is the Master's of Social Work. And I got a bachelor's degree in a whole other field. So I didn't ever have a goal of becoming a psychotherapist or anything like that. But I realized that a lot of them had broken lives outside of the job, just like mine. And they got into the field, some of them to learn about what's going on with their own diagnosis, or some of them to learn what's going on with the diagnosis of a family member or a close friend that they were trying to understand better. And then they were just intrigued. You know, now I want to go out in the world and assist people. But you would be, hi Colleen, if I didn't say that already. But you would be shocked about how some of them operate outside of the job. Like, the job represents most of the stability. And it's the case for me too. Because on the job, I'm very professional. So even if I had the worst possible day, to give an example, when that member lined me up and told all those lies about me, it was not at the end of my day that I was told about this. It was at the beginning of my day, first thing in the morning. It made me angry, it made me stressed, and it made me anxious. But I still knew that I had a caseload full of people to see. So I'm like, I have to figure out a way to not let the emotions that I'm feeling regarding this one person bleed into all these other people that I still have yet to see. So immediately I get off this meeting where they're asking me, did you do this, Mark? Did you say this? Did you act like this with this person? And then I get a call right after that with somebody else who I have never had a problem with. One of my favorite members. It's like, hey, Mr. Mark, how's it going this morning? I need your assistance with this and this and this. And I'm boiling inside, but I'm like, this guy didn't do anything to deserve to get any kind of an attitude from me. So I have to somehow compartmentalize this feeling and put it to the side to be dealt with later, to be able to not compromise the quality of service that everybody else is getting. And I have to let this be something where I say, okay, this is going to happen. This is a possibility to happen every once in a while, but it's not the majority of people doing this. That's one thing. Secondly, what I was saying about the professionalism. There's some days when I wake up, I'm stressed, I'm very depressed, and I'm overwhelmed with whatever is happening in my own life. But then I'm like, I'm going to be going into stressful environments with people who have larger needs than mine. So I have to find a way to be my best self for those 8 hours. And in a way, I would say that it helps me. As hard as it is, I would say that it helps me because it forces me to use all of the tools that I have learned myself over the years and through going to therapy to be able to be like, okay, push out all these negative thoughts and feelings and push past the depression, because that's not going to help somebody else if they're able to see me wearing that on my face, if they're able to feel the energy that I just don't want to be there. So it's almost like, it reminds me of when I was visiting my dad when he was still in the nursing home, and people used to tell me, even if you feel sad, even if you feel like crying, even if you feel whatever you're feeling, he's still a person who's here, regardless of the fact that his functioning is less than it used to be. And he'll be able to feel that from you. So I remember many days mentally preparing myself before I left the house, and then when I got into the car, I'm like, for this 30 minutes, hour, 2 hours, however long I was going to stay with him, I was going to be positive. I was going to speak positive words to him. I wasn't going to look at him and be like, oh man, I'm sorry that you're in this position. You know, I would have to build myself up beforehand, and I would have to kind of decompress on my own afterwards. And I would say that also lended itself to what I've been able to do here. Now, with all that said, I still feel the same thing that I have always felt. The position, not just at this company, but at any company, is not set up for anyone to be able to do this realistically without sacrificing a bunch of themselves to be able to do it. And I know this from many years of experience, 12 years of experience within this field. I know this from speaking to many colleagues. I know colleagues that have been on the verge of breakdowns. I know colleagues that have had a breakdown and had to actually take short-term disability time to recover from the job. So this is not just a me thing. You talk to anyone in this field who will give you an honest and forthright, objective opinion about the field, and it's just the nature of the beast. It doesn't matter which company you go, they're all going to be another version of the same thing. But what I hope to be able to do one day is to figure out a way to do some of what I do at this job on my own time, private practice. I choose my own caseload. I determine the things that I have to document, not just things that I have to do to maintain a government grant, but things that I know that will actually be useful to the people that I'm serving. So I want to do a version of social work. I just don't want to do the version that is spelled out in the books. And that's my explanation. The field, I think the field takes good people and puts them through the ringer to the point where you now get these case managers or social workers, therapists, whatever they do, that are the people that everyone complains about. Like, oh, it just seems like they are in and out. They just want me to come in and then write their notes and get out. I see, like, they say, oh, I feel like I'm just a number to them. I mean, I know there's probably some people who just got into the field for the money. So there are probably some people who came in with that mentality. But I feel like there's more people than not who came in with the idea that they were going to serve the clientele, and then they started to get swamped with work and swamped with these unrealistic expectations. So then they were like, the only way for me to accomplish this in a reasonable way is for me to just, deal with the numbers. Because in a sense, that's where I'm at. I hate to say that, but it's the truth. That's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I will say that I probably still do more than several other people in the field, but there are times when I'm just figuring out, okay, what do I have to do to get to my requirement for the month so that they're not going to get on me for that? Or sometimes I'm like, I could stay longer and assist this person, but staying longer, I don't get the you stayed until the problem was solved award. So I pretty much just stay until I've gotten the information that I need. And maybe if I have time at the end of the month, I'm like, I'll schedule an extra visit for you. But open a counseling clinic, I mean, they have EAP, which I'm actually probably going to reach out to. I think it stands for Employee Assistance Program. And for a lot of people who are clinicians, because I'm not considered a clinician, they are required at their jobs to actually see a therapist. But my problem is, do you not see it as a problem for a person to have to see a therapist because of the difficulties that the job is giving them? Like, they didn't need a therapist previously, but they're seeing a therapist to decompress from the job. That's crazy to me. I know certain jobs, like maybe being a police, maybe like being on the police force, or working in a hospital, like being a doctor, or being a psychotherapist at Rikers Island or something. I know people who work at Rikers Island. So for those types of jobs, I can definitely understand having a mandatory need for a therapist for those people. But doing a job like mine, I'm not saying that nobody should be seeing a therapist for this, because anybody could see a therapist. But what I'm saying is, it's made in such a way that everybody basically needs a therapist. And instead of having your therapy time about your life as a whole, imagine taking up a significant part of that time talking about your job. And I did that at my last job. I was seeing EAP for probably about 8 months. And 90% of what I spoke about was my work. And I felt like I'm wasting my time with this therapy because there are other things that I need to talk about. But the problem was, work was engulfing so much of my life that I didn't even have time to think about my life outside of work. So I consider that to be a problem. Okay. I just realized Cass called me bestie. I'm going to screen capture this so I can send it to Ed later. Screen captured. All right, you should, where are we at? Happy Friday. Happy Friday, Cindy. Yours is a hard, mentally draining job. It is, but I feel like it shouldn't be as mentally draining as it is. But the people who put these particular positions together are not clinicians, or they're not people who are actually doing the work. They're just people who are saying, on paper, one should be able to accomplish this in 8 hours. So they're not actually the people out in the trenches, out in the field. Like, I'm outside right now, you know. I'm outside every day. I'm not just, these people are not just a number on my caseload. It's an actual person who I am driving out to their residence. Number one, driving to their residence is stressful. I live in New York City. The drive is stressful. I just had an accident the other day. There's always all this traffic and there's people that are driving wild. Then I get there, different things are going on in the household. Sometimes it's just the person, sometimes it's 6 family members in there. One house that I went to, I was in the house and I was meeting with the client. The client was telling me about their experiences, and each family member wanted to come over. Mr. Mark, can I tell you something? And they were all giving differing stories about each of their experiences with each other. And I'm like, shoot, man, this is getting kind of crazy. So a bunch of people sit down at a table and discuss the financials, and we're operations. If anyone knows about the structure of how a business is run, my category is operations. So what I'm doing is the main thing that brings in the revenue for the company. And they treat it like it's assembly line work. You know, on an assembly line, it's more predictable. Okay, you stand on this line, you put all these pieces together. So this is the quota. We kind of look at what the average person is able to do, and then we kind of make an average based on that, and then we go like above that average to make sure they do more, and that's how we make our quota. But then for something like this, they don't act like we're dealing with actual people. People are stressors for us. You know, we meet them where they are in their community, and sometimes they have a lot going on. Sometimes they're intoxicated. Sometimes they are episodic. There's just many different things that you deal with. And it's very hard. So you could leave somebody's house, and technically, yes, the appointment took you X amount of minutes and the notes took you X amount of minutes. But there are times when I don't just jump into the notes right away, because it takes me some time to decompress about what was going on at the house. So it's not just black and white, ABC 1 2 3. There's times where I had lots of things to do for the day, but a visit was so heavy and intensive that I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this today because I can't take one more minute of this for the day. And then there's a thing about separation. that's really hard, but you have to really lock in on doing this for yourself because the job will always give you more. Imagine you leave your house and you see 8 people for the day. You take on each one of their different problems, which could be many for them. And then you get off the job and you're supposed to just turn it off and get back into your regular life for the evening. It's so important to do this because if you don't do it, it's just going to continue through the night and roll over into the next day. And that happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I've had to remind myself over and over again. I would rather be spoken to for doing something late on the job than to overuse and overextend myself Sorry, I'm just looking at what's going on around me. It's always like this here. Than to overuse and overextend myself to the point where I'm headed towards a breakdown just to make sure that I made a deadline. I'll never do that. And maybe you could say that makes me a bad employee, or maybe that makes me somebody who has actually done everything for a job before, had a breakdown, and then had the job fire me to reward me for all of the sacrifice that I made. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I have a few minutes left, but I'm going to get my stuff ready. I got to go do my visit. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Have a great Friday, y'all.